Hey everyone, this is Pete. Welcome back to Atari A to Z Flashback. Got the name right today. A series of explorations of the 150 games that make up Atari Flashback Classics for Nintendo Switch. Today's game is Crystal Castles for the Atari 2600. Now, Crystal Castles we've already seen once on this compilation in its arcade incarnation, which first came out in 1983. The Atari 2600 port came out a year later in 1984. Now, as you may recall from the arcade version, if you've seen that episode of this series, Crystal Castles was noteworthy for its trimetric projection to create a sort of quasi 3D effect. And it was quite an early example of things like 3D platforming and that sort of thing. It was also one of the first games to have an actual ending, so you could finish it if you were good enough, which seems like an unreasonable demand, having played Crystal Castles a bit, but it is technically possible to finish it. And it also had warp zones where you could skip early levels, get a big point bonus, and move straight onto the more difficult levels if you wanted to. The Atari 2600 port was pretty ambitious, so we say. Well, I'll leave it up to you to decide how good a job they did of it. So, let's go play Crystal Castles for the Atari 2600.
Okay, here we are once again with Atari Flashback Classics for Nintendo Switch. Today having a look at Crystal Castles for Atari 2600. As always, let's have a look at the manual first of all. Slightly poor quality scan here, but we'll get by. Once upon a time, Bentley Bear was rambling through the woods, daydreaming about poached salmon. Because bears like salmon, you see. He stopped to take a nap in his favourite hollow tree trunk. But when he awoke, he found himself inside a huge castle, glittering with diamonds, emeralds and pearls. Though Bentley didn't know it at the time, he was trapped in Crystal Castles, home of Bathilda the Witch and her evil cronies. To escape their spell, he must harvest the gems in the castles before Bathilda and her malicious gang send him into permanent hibernation. It's a bit grim, isn't it? Okay, so you begin Crystal Castles at level 1 through 8, but Bentley can trample through level after level as long as he survives his enemies. Each level has 4 castles, Bentley has 5 lives and is outmaneuver a maximum of 7 creatures depending on the castle. At every 20,000 points, he wins an extra life. Bentley can make himself temporarily invincible if he dons a magic hat by running or jumping over it. Wherever a witch appears, so does the magic hat. No enemy can pass through this headgear. At game level 4 and above, the hat bounces up and down. At game level 9 and above, it turns into a crystal ball if Bentley doesn't grab it immediately. Okay, and then there's all the different enemy types and how they move. That's about it. No, that's the whole manual. So about the scoring. If Bentley harvests the last gem in the castles, he wins extra points. Elevators make perfect escape routes. However, they only operate one at a time. Bentley is invincible while he's jumping. That's worth knowing. Bentley can temporarily stun nasty trees and gem eaters by jumping over them. But this manoeuvre won't work if he's wearing the magic hat or while the gem eaters are swallowing gems. Can you also... Yes, it looks like you can do the run through the gem eaters to kill them while they're eating a gem as well. Okay, let's give it a go. So here we are, Crystal Castles, 1984 Atari. And it actually has a title screen. Which, as we've said before on, I think it was Centipede, quite unusual for the Atari 2600. Normally you just select your different games, which you can do here, and then just jump straight in. But here we are, Crystal Castles. Now, as you can see here, we don't quite have the same level of impressive 3D visuals that are going on in the arcade version of Crystal Castles, and in fact we have some very flickery sprites that you may not be able to see on the video capture. I think I've mentioned this before, but my video capture hardware only captures at 30 frames a second. So if anything is flickering at 60 frames a second, you might not be able to see that. So I apologise in advance if that happens to be the case here. There's the swarm of bees. So, I mean, obviously this is very limited in comparison to the arcade original. But it's trying hard. There aren't that many games that use this this sort of perspective on the Atari 2600. We talked a little bit about in the arcade version how it's using a trimetric perspective rather than a true isometric one. This one actually is a lot closer to a true isometric one. Oh dear. It is sort of lacking a few things. I was about to say it's sort of lacking distinctions between height, but it's even managing that. So you've actually got some slopes there. I mean, they're not as clear and obvious as they are in the arcade version. Again, flickery sprites there. Apologies if you can't see those. But yeah, we've actually got the distinction between heights. We've got these elevators going up and down, which we can stand on if I time it correctly, which I'm not doing at all. Down we go. We've got some fairly authentic sounds to the arcade version. We've got a decent number of enemies on screen. We've got the music. Yeah, there we are. And there's some more slopes going on. As you might have been able to tell from my tone in the intro, I wasn't expecting great things from this port, sort of based on what I've previously seen of it. But you know what? This isn't bad. This isn't bad at all. Yes, you can do that then. It's certainly a lot easier than the arcade version. Oh dear, that landed right on me, didn't it? Yeah, aside from the flickering sprites thing, which is sadly unavoidable under 2600, yeah, this is not bad at all. Not bad at all. I mean, it's not 100% authentic to the arcade version, particularly in terms of level design. Like, there's no sequences where you can go behind stuff in this. But yeah, I'm actually pretty impressed with this. Let's have another go. So basically what we got here is, rather than trying to be a direct perfect port of this, what we've got is it's using a lot of the systems and mechanics and overall presentation of Crystal Castle, but then making a new game out of it that fits within the 2600's capabilities. So the reason we don't have any sort of 3D bits where you can go behind stuff in this is presumably down to the 2600 struggling with matters of priority, I guess. Because that would demand that the sprites get displayed behind the background under certain circumstances. I don't know a lot about sort of the 2600's hardware and how you program for it and that sort of thing, but I would assume it's something like that. The hardware is either not capable of that, or it's very difficult to do that, presumably. But what we've got here certainly works absolutely fine within its limitations. So the programmers clearly knew what limitations they were working within, and then worked within them, rather than trying to do anything too ambitious. So yeah, I am sorry for my initial cynicism, I guess. Oops. Because yeah, this is actually a lot more solid than I was expecting. It's always a nice surprise when that happens. And it's also why I tend to find anytime you hear people sort of keen to declare something the worst thing ever, or anything like that, it's always worth checking it out for yourself, because sometimes you don't agree. Sometimes your own perspective on this sort of thing makes you appreciate it in your own way, and that doesn't make you wrong or anything like that. It just means that you feel a bit differently to how everyone else does, which is no bad thing. So I've had that with a number of games over the years. We're about to get attacked by a cat, by the way, if you can hear any meowing going on. My cat Patty has just entered the room, and I think she would like some attention, so we're probably going to get jumped on any moment now. Hello. How are you? I'm busy. Come to help, have you? Okay. Oh dear. I've messed up now. I can pet you now. She's just off camera, unfortunately, so I can't show you her today. Can you not stand on that instruction manual, please? Thank you very much. Right, let's try again. This time with added cat difficulty. Yeah, I mean, I've said this a bunch of times already, so I don't want to repeat myself too much, but this is cool. I guess the only sort of things it's missing are the same things a lot of 2600 games are missing. Like, it doesn't have a high score feature, which is a bit of a shame. But then not many 2600 games did. I think we talked about that before. That was probably, in most cases, some sort of memory saving feature, because the 2600 did not have much memory. These games did not take up much space in their own right. And so if there was a way to avoid a game having to store a large number, which it would have to do if it was keeping track of a high score, then it wouldn't do. And so what you would do instead is you would write down your own high scores. We didn't see one in the actual Crystal Castles manual, but the oft-mocked notes feature that you get in game manuals, it was originally for writing down high scores. For games that did not support sort of storing or saving them, whether temporarily or permanently. Yeah, that is one little shame in this Atari Flashback Classics collection as well. For whatever reason, there's no leaderboards or anything for the Atari 2600 games. Even the ones that could have clearly supported one like this. I don't know why. I don't know whether that was sort of just the programmers not being able to get the data out of the 2600, or if they just didn't feel like implementing it for whatever reason. But yeah, whatever the reason, despite the fact that the arcade games have leaderboards in most cases, the 2600 games do not. So if you want to compete against your friends, you're going to have to do it on your own terms. Trying to work out if this game has analog control. I don't think it does, because the 2600 didn't really have an analog controller as such, aside from paddles. But certainly the feel of playing this with the analog stick on the Nintendo Switch is actually really good. And actually better than the hypersensitive simulation of the trackball controls on the arcade version. It's very, very smooth movement on Bentley. It works really nicely. I mean, yes, I'm still pretty bad at this game, judging by my overall performance, but what can you do? Oh no, it's all over. Maybe one more go. Let's start at level 2 this time. Oh, I thought it was keeping track of high score for a minute then, but no, it's not. Alright. So this is actually starting us off where we left off, which is nice. But I doubt there's any sort of warp bonus in this, like there was in the arcade version. If you haven't seen that episode, by the way, the warp bonus was on the first level. There's a couple of different places you can go, and if you jump in those places, it will warp you to different later levels. And it will give you a large score bonus in the process. And this is quite a common thing in Atari games, right up until their later days. Because it was a means of allowing expert players to start later in the game and be rewarded for that with extra points that would be roughly equivalent to what they would get if they had reached that point themselves. In most cases, you would get more points if you put the work in yourself and actually went from the beginning of the game and got to a particular point yourself. Cat is back. Hello. But, yeah, the option was usually there in Atari games. Starting with stuff like Crystal Castles and Tempest. To actually start at a later stage and get a score bonus. I said it doesn't seem to be implemented here, which is a shame, but well, like I say, this version does already differ quite significantly from the arcade version in a number of ways, so we can't be too mad. Oh, excuse me. Coronavirus. Or whatever. Oh, I'm sick of people talking about coronavirus and panicking over it. I went to the shop earlier, and there was this middle-aged lady there with her daughter, and they were buying like 3 packs of 9 rolls of toilet paper. It's like, no one needs 27 rolls of toilet paper. This disease doesn't even make you shit yourself. But, well, someone watching this episode at some point in the future will go, what are you talking about? Because we'll all have forgotten about this eventually. But at the minute, it's more a pain of the arse than anything. I swear, the rate we're going, the way people are behaving in it, is probably going to be more of a threat than the actual disease itself. But what do I know? I'm just an aging game enthusiast. Sitting here on a Saturday, recording myself playing Atari 2600 games on my Nintendo Switch. Oh, I got extra life. Hello, Patty. Meow. You're helping, are you? You are very helpful. I like the fact that they bothered to implement the way the gems make different sounds based on what height they're at. So like the further up the screen you go, the higher the pitch of the sound when you pick up a gem. Oh no! Can't jump off an elevator then. There we go. Nice! Oh, that actually looks reasonably convincingly castle-like. I'm very impressed with this. I know I've said it several times already, but yeah. I've not spent a significant amount of time on it before because, well, I just made assumptions about it. But that's partly what this whole series is about. Giving me an excuse to try out some of these games for myself. Figure out what's going on with all of them. And whether they have any sort of lasting appeal and value. Uh-oh. It's all over. But yeah, this certainly has some lasting appeal and value and is worth checking out independently of the arcade version. So, yeah, good job, Atari. Nice. Just remains for me to say then, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please help out the channel by leaving a like or a comment and subscribing. New episodes of Atari A to Z are on Tuesdays and Atari ST A to Z on Thursdays. Check out atariatoz.wordpress.com for a full archive. Do please also check out my other projects moegamer.net, where I explore Japanese and Japanese-inspired games from yesterday and today, and videopackgames.wordpress.com, which aims to catalogue the small but well-formed library of the Philips G7000 Videopack computer, also known as the Magnavox Odyssey 2. You can also support my work on Patreon or buy me a coffee. You can find links to do both down in the video description. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.